أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة. أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. صل على محمد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صل على محمد وآل محمد.
تفضلوا استريحوا عفوا. الله يزيد فضلك. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولو شاء ربك لجعل الناس أمة واحدة ولا يزالون مختلفين إلا من رحم ربك ولذلك خلقهم وتمت كلمة ربك لأملأن جهنم من الجنة والناس أجمعين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse in the Holy Quran, He speaks about the differences within mankind. And had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed, He would have made us one ummah, one nation. He says, with the exception of whosoever He has mercy upon, and this is why He created us. And then He changes tone immediately and says, I shall fill the fire of hell with humans and jinn completely. In this holy month, Shahr Sha'ban, the final days of this holy month, they ask, one of the companions of Imam Rida comes up to the Imam and he asks him. The Imam tells him that this month is nearly over, and think about how many opportunities that you have missed out on. So the Imam, salamullahi alayhi, he gives him some advice on what to do with the remaining days of the month. Of the things he tells him, he says that this is the prelude to Shahr Ramadan. So start reciting the Holy Quran. Seek forgiveness. He says, and remove the hatred from your heart for other believers. This is just a little excerpt of it. And he says, continue with the dua, Allahumma in lam ghafarta lana fima madha min hadha shahr, faghfir lana fima baqiya min. That if you have not forgiven us for what has passed in this holy month of Sha'ban, then forgive us in what remains and what goes on. But one of the most important points in this small narration is he says, remove the hatred you have for other believers. What does it feel like, or what does it mean to lose a good opportunity, an important opportunity? There's a story of a man who gets arrested wrongfully. They arrest him and they take him and they place him in a jail cell. This happened in the United States. And when they placed him in this cell, they forgot about him completely. So he was there the first day screaming and shouting, and they forgot they had put him. Somebody didn't register that they had arrested him. So they didn't bring him any food and water. And then the second day and the third day, until it got so bad that he was going to die of hunger and thirst. On the fourth day they discovered him. He was still alive, but he was in a very bad state. So they took him out of jail, and then naturally he sued the police department. And then when he sued, the judge ruled in his favor, and he was paid out $3 or $4 million, something like that, for 4 days in jail. So people read this story and they were delighted. They said, I will go for 4 days in a cell and give me $4 million. This sounds like such an excellent deal. 4 years, someone said. There was a man that recently had 27 years, and when he got out, they gave him $1 million for every year he spent in there. So it's not bad. So the issue is, we look at this and we feel like, well, this is an opportunity. How many of those times where you were almost about to invest in something and then you didn't, and all of a sudden it flew up? Shares in Combank, shares in Apple, or properties. I remember there was a property across the road from my house that was selling 15 years ago for $750,000. And so I said to my brothers, let's get together and buy this. And then we didn't end up buying it. Now it's worth $16 million. So people look at it and say, this was a big opportunity. Or had I bought it, people might have said, you know what, why didn't you tell us that in your street, you had this inkling that the price would go up? And you know how bad you feel about it? Some people never forget about this. It stays with them their whole life. They keep remembering, that time when I almost had this opportunity and then it never worked out. Or that time I almost invested in this and I would have been a billionaire by now. Whether it's Bitcoin or whatever it is, this is the concept of missing out on an important opportunity, and we feel like we've lost everything because we didn't get this opportunity. But realistically, what does this opportunity mean? If somebody, for example, offered you whatever you want right now, right in this moment, they offer you $100 million. They offer you to be the king of the world, but you only have 7 days to live. Would you accept? Would you accept? Think about it. No one would accept. Or you get this amount of money, but you don't get to wake up the next morning. Would you accept? Nobody would accept this, because they realize that life is much more valuable than this when you look at it in that scope. When you have a look at it and you see that's the scope of what it is, you understand that life is much more valuable than any amount of money. The fact that you're awake and alive and you're healthy is better than any amount of money. In fact, the Holy Prophet says, Al-ghina wal-faqr ba'd al-ardi ala Allah. Don't say about somebody they are rich. He says, wealth and poverty is only after the exposition in front of Allah on the Day of Judgment. When you stand there and you are judged, if you gain paradise, then truly you are of the rich. And if you fail paradise, then you have nothing. Why? The days that have passed are gone. We can't do anything about them. All we can do is think and lament. And the future is not guaranteed. We don't know if there will be a tomorrow. But what we have is this moment and now, the day that we're living. What good can I do in this moment? This is what the holy month of Ramadan is all about. And when the Holy Prophet ﷺ speaks about this holy month, and he says to them, قَدْ أَقْبَلَ إِلَيْكُمْ صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. He says, قَدْ أَقْبَلَ إِلَيْكُمْ شهر الله بالبركة والرحمة والمغفرة شهر هو عند الله أفضل الشهور أيامه أفضل الأيام ولياليه أفضل الليالي وساعاته أفضل الساعات هو شهر دعيتم فيه إلى ضيافة الله. He says that this month has come forth with mercy and blessings and forgiveness. Its hours are the best of hours, its nights are the best of nights, its days are the best of days. In it you have been invited to be the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. There is no greater invite on earth. This is the greatest invitation that you will ever receive. When you think about what you are as a human being, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the universe, has said, you will be my guest. Allahu Akbar. When you think about it, what power do you have? What power do you actually have? Do you know when we say the words La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-ali al-azim, this means that there is no change, nor any power except with Allah. And the word hawla or hawl can sometimes mean way, but it's more referred to change. Change is the most important concept in our lives. All of science is based on change. All of economics is based on change. All the knowledge you've ever read or learnt is based on change. That's the most important thing, and that's what you study. How does it change? This is the most important thing. There is no change, nor any power except through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we are sitting, we cannot stand except through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I'm leaning and I want to lean to the other side, if Allah doesn't give me the power, and how many a story? How many a story have we heard? Where a person is sitting and they don't move after that. There's a story, a short story of a friend that I know. He was in the gym doing weights. And this happens, I think, a lot to the people that go to the gym and lift very heavy, if I'm not mistaken. They have an injury and they can't move. And then usually, with the will of Allah, it turns out to be something good. But this guy was doing lateral pull downs or something, and he was holding too much weight. And then he stopped. He called one of his friends. He said, "Can you check if I've wet myself? I feel like I just wet my pants." So he checked and he said, "You haven't wet your pants." He says, "Well, I can't feel my legs." So the movement of the nerves in his back made him feel like he wet his pants, but he hadn't. All that had happened is he lost all feeling from the waist down. Gone. After surgery and a million other things, alhamdulillah, he can walk again, move around. But the moral of the story is that this change doesn't come except through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor is there any power except through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And us, as these lowly beings, this is what we are. What are we created from? When Imam Ali alayhi salam, today we live in the world and the era of vanity. And this vanity is so baseless. This vanity is based upon the complete perception of others. It's based on the complete perception of others. A beautiful woman in 2022, or man, is not the same as what a beautiful woman was in 1950 or 1910. And the reason behind this is that perception is something that's just socially constructed. A successful man in 2022 is not the same as 2023, is not the same as a successful man in 1900, for example, or in the 1800s, so on and so forth. Because this perception is completely based on something that is totally imaginary. One of the brothers was showing me an excerpt from a book by an author by the name of Gabor Mate. And this man, he's quite an intelligent man, and he has certain theories. But within this book, he speaks about a case study of a person who concentrated their whole life on their career. Now, don't get me wrong. It is important for our Muslim brothers to be the best that they can be in school. It is important for our Muslim brothers and sisters to be the best that they can be in akhlaq, in academia, and study and learn and get good jobs and earn good money, because it's good. If you can have this, it's good. Money is good. It's not a bad thing as long as you use it in the right way. But listen to this. This man, the case study, he ended up having a really good job in a company called IKEA. You may have heard of it. And this person was like a huge HR manager in it. And he said, within this, he said that I used my whole life focusing on this career. And I realized after X amount of years, I'm now 70 years old and I'm in good health, but I realized it was insanity for the last 40 years that I had been working to get to this position. Absolute insanity. Why? He says, and he uses another source to quote this in the book, but he says, because I had been basing the idea of success on the imagination of others. The imagination of others. How real is that for us today? It is so real. How real is it today, for example, when we go and we train, weight training to become absolutely massive. Don't get big, get massive, okay? We get so massive. Why? Because we think the perception of others will approve of this and this will show I am successful. I can be rich and needless, but I need to show others how rich and needless I am. I am so rich and needless that I have this X amount of money I spend on my motor vehicles. I'm so rich and needless that this is where I holiday on the weekend. This is my 7th trip to the Maldives, for example, and I take photos and let everybody know to see, will they give me approval, for example? We base all this success on our perception of the imagination of other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this human being who is so fragile, who is so insecure, whom Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, what has man to do with vanity? You want to show how good you are or prove yourself to random people that you don't even know exist, to random likes on the internet that may or may not exist. They could be bots that are just giving you likes. You want to base your life on this. And yet Imam Ali alayhi salam says, what has man to do with vanity? He begins as a nutfa, a spermatozoa, which is najis. And then throughout his whole life, he carries najasa. That's all we do. I remember whenever we go ziyarah, we go to the Hajj, especially when you go with a bit of a high-class hamlet and you're going to these good hotels with massive buffets. The conversations begin about ziyarah and how good ziyarah is, and then after a while they begin to talk about buffets and toilets. The whole conversation becomes, I ate this, didn't eat this, stomach IBS and the whole thing. And we begin to just speak about, that food was better than this food. These toilets were the best toilets I've ever been to. This shower, toilet, food. This becomes the whole conversation. What goes in, what comes out, input, output. This is what happens. So the Imam says we carry najasa our whole life, and the end of our life, we become najasa itself. We're a corpse, which is najis. So what do we have to do with vanity? Nothing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you are my guests. That He says that you are du'itum fihi lidiyafatillah. That you are a dhaif of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you become of ahl karamat Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honors you. وَجُعِلْتُمْ فِيهِ أَهْلِ كَرَامَةِ اللَّهِ أَنفَاسَكُمْ فِيهِ تَسْبِيحٌ in this holy month. وَنَوْمُكُمْ فِيهِ عِبَادَةٌ. He says in this month your breath is like tasbih. Your sleep is like ibadah. Your dua is accepted, is answered. Your deeds are accepted. How do we enter this month? This is what's important. That Allah has taken me, this lowly being, and said, you are my guest of honor. Ask and you shall receive. Do good and I will reward you. This is one of the greatest opportunities that comes our way. But what do we do with this opportunity? Even before it begins, the Imam tells his companion, Imam Rida alayhi salam, he says, connect Shahr Sha'ban with Shahr Ramadan. Fast 3 days in the last, or even 1 day, but 3 in the last of Shahr Sha'ban, and connect it to Shahr Ramadan. It counts as Sawm al-Dahr, as if you have fasted a lifetime. As if you have fasted a lifetime. If you fast those 3 days and connect it to Shahr Ramadan. But when it comes to fasting, the first thing we all talk about is what? Those first 10 days are going to be killer. The hours are a little bit longer. Climate change has made the temperature hotter. Wallah. This is our whole conversation. And then some people, they don't even come to any of the majalis. They don't do the dua. They don't reopen the Quran. There's this book called the Quran. It's the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yet we rather run and chase after speculative things. I will spend 3 hours on cloud seeding. I will spend 4 hours on why they were wrong about the corona vaccine with all of my knowledge of PlayStation. And then I will come and I want to tell everybody about what I have discovered in the medical world, but I can't spend 10 minutes on the Holy Quran. This book that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to His Messenger, that the Prophet was so careful with, that even in Surah At-Tawheed, Allah tells him, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. The Prophet doesn't say Allahu Ahad. قُل means say. The Prophet says, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Say Allah is one. Exactly what Allah told him, He reveals to us. Subhanallah. Think about it. It was meticulous in its revelation. Within it, there is wisdom and knowledge to the real life. Because this isn't the real life, my brothers and sisters. If you think about it, no one would accept to live like a day for a king if we're going to die. But this is what actually happens. You die and you become a distant memory and the world just moves on. It's exactly what happens. وَمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ كَدِّي وَسَعِي. Isn't that what he says? Imam al-Qadhim alayhi salam in the dua al-Hazin, he says that on the day, ارحمنا يوم أتيك فردا شاخصا إليك بصري وقد تبرأ جميع الخلق مني نعم وأبي وأمي. And all of the creation will all of a sudden disassociate with me. They take me to that hole in the ground, they disassociate. My mother and father will say that's it, he's in the ground. Allah yarhamu. He was a good kid, or he was a bad kid. Allah khaffif anhu. May Allah make it easy for him. Even the ones who all my effort and striving was for, yani my children, everyone leaves you. So what is it worth if it's this trivial or it's this easily lost? It's not worth anything. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He invites us to this and He tells us this best invitation ever on earth, and within this you have the ability to come back to the Holy Quran. So He says in the month of Sha'ban, begin by coming back. Some people, they don't even turn up. You know what they do? They say, when's Laylatul Qadr? Sheikh, when's Laylatul Qadr? So I tell him, yeah, but which one's the one, bro? Not, like 23rd, come on the 23rd. Then he rocks up on the 23rd and he's like, all right, bro, make sure the fast guy reads Dua al-Jawshan. Because, I'm not sitting around here. It's like you're saying, Allah, I'm turning up. You said it's Laylatul Qadr, forgive my sins. You don't forgive my sins, Allah. Either way. And they walk out. This is the truth. And it's rude for me to speak like this, but this is the truth. This is the reality of it. Well, this program is too long, this program is too short. This is the month of the Holy Quran. This is the month where we have the ability to ascertain real change within our lives. How many a year upon year, and we're going to stay the same. This is the year that you can shut off your television. It's fine. It's all right, the world's not going to end. You can get off social media. You know why? Because a lot of us say, I don't listen to music, but my son knows all the latest songs. How? He doesn't listen to music, but when I'm going through my TikTok reels or my Instagram reels and that background music and I'm just concentrating on the guy fixing his gearbox in the bush, but what's happening in the background is the Coca-Cola Top 40. So this kid hears the music and it's like he knows the chorus to every latest song. How? This is playing in my house. Turn it off for a month, play some Quran in your house. See the benefits and the barakah that will change within your household. This is what it's about. The Prophet says, close your eyes to what is haram. Close your ears to what is haram. Stop speaking unless what is good. Stop talking about people. There's simple things that we know, but this month gives us that ability. Because you will be fasting, you will be hungry and thirsty, and Allah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ala dhikrihi sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He says, وَاذْكُرُوا بِجُوعِكُمْ وَعَطَشِكُمْ فِيهِ جُوع يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ وَعَطَشَهُ. That remember with your thirst and your hunger, there's a day, the day of judgment, where you're going to be hungry and you're going to be thirsty. There's a verse in the Quran, Surah Al-Ghashiyah. It talks about the day of judgment. It's named Al-Ghashiyah because the Ghashiyah means the overwhelming. Have you seen when someone's overwhelmed and they go into a catatonic state? That something really devastating happens to them and they stop acting normally at all? This is overwhelming. In this world, when we are overwhelmed, we faint. On the day of judgment, there's no fainting. You're still going to get dragged to the mahshar even when you're overwhelmed. So he says, remember, why does Allah in this verse, subhanAllah, this verse that I mentioned at the end of Surah Hud, before Surah Yusuf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبُّكَ وَلِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُم. He says basically that I have خَلَقَكُم. He says basically I have created you to have mercy upon you, however I'm going to fill Jahannam min al-jinni wal-nas ajma'in. I created you to have mercy, but there's a Jahannam. Why? If we don't have that understanding of Jahannam, we won't be good to each other. Which brings me back to the original point of Imam Ar-Rida saying, take out the hatred from your heart. Because the Prophet says in the month of Ramadan, call upon Allah with pure hearts. قُلُوبٌ صَافِيَةٌ وَنِيَّاتٌ صَادِقَةٌ. Pure hearts and true intentions. How can you have a pure heart if you have hatred for somebody that loves the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt? This is a big problem. And this is something each one of us needs to really think about. To fulfill whatever debts we have in this month. To make up with whoever we have enmity with. Whoever we have been upset with, this is the month for it. We have this opportunity, Shahr Ramadan is coming up. Sometimes you just tell someone, like you want to get forgiven and you've just like, we're backbiting this guy. So you turn around and say, all right, brothers, I want everyone to forgive me. And then this guy, well, yeah, but why do you want me to forgive you? I want to know what you said about me. People do that. Now we have an opportunity, I say, because it's Shahr Ramadan, brother. Shahr Ramadan is coming and I want a pure heart. So I want you all to forgive me. Call up the people that you don't talk to, the people that you had a fight with. Nothing in this world is worth it. And in this world, there's life and death. Wallah, people die. People die. I know of a story in our community. There's many stories like this of two brothers that had a terrible fight. And then one of them jumped on the plane and flew overseas. The other one died. This is what happened. By the time he got halfway on his trip, they told him, someone contacted the airline and said, tell him to come back, his brother has just died. All right. Inshallah, they forgive one another and it's finished, it's gone. But how would you feel about this, honestly? Whether it's your brother or it's your cousin. And the Prophet says, go easy on people that are in your power. You have power over your children. You have power over your wife. Some wives have power over their husbands. Go easy on them. In this month, this is what you're supposed to do. Take it easy on these people. Why? So Allah can have mercy on you. Fix your demeanor. This month you have that ability. On normal days we're controlled by our addictions, whether it's telephones, whether it's cigarettes, whether it's whatever it is, we're controlled. These 30 days, you can say, I'm not going to allow myself to be controlled by these addictions. The Prophet says, uproot the sins that you have been doing. Uproot. Iqla'. That completely remove it. Don't do a root canal. Take the whole molar out. Remove it completely. Don't give it a chance to come back and bother you. The sins that you are doing, fully uproot it. This is Shahr Ramadan. I'm going to discipline myself with no food and no water and worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sticking to the Holy Quran, and perhaps Allah may show mercy upon me and enact some serious change within my life. Allah enable me to become a completely different person. Because all of this only comes through dua. The proof of this is look around you. Look around you. How many are a person that can't string a sentence and yet they're a millionaire? And how many are a person, for example, that's married to someone and they're punching far above their weight? Happens, right? And how many are a person that's so intelligent and he hasn't got a cent to his name? And how many are a person that would make a perfect mother and she has no children? For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows you that it's not about that. I'm the one that gives and I'm the one that takes away. This is the month of dua. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this holy month that's coming up, inshallah, even within this month, there's a dua in the Quran. It says, Allahumma arina manasikana. This is a dua you used to make before going to the Hajj, that, oh Allah, don't let me die before I see the manasik of Hajj. This is the same thing. Ya Allah, don't take me until I see Shahr Ramadan and get the blessings of Shahr Ramadan and have that ability to make that dua that will enable true change in my life. This is what this khutbah of, and take a look at this khutbah. It's too long for me to read through it and to go through it. But it's translated in English. It's translated in every language online. Look at what the Prophet says step by step about everything about this important holy month. And finally at the end of it what he says. When the Prophet starts to cry and Imam Ali says to him, why do you cry? He says, for what will happen to you in this holy month. Remember? And then he says to him, you are like me. Whoever kills you, killed me. Whoever swears about you, swears about me. For he shows us the position of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi alayhi in the end of the khutbah. But this whole khutbah is about this. In this month, we have a week left. We don't know how long we'll live. I'll tell you a story just to sort of smooth it down. This story is mainly remembered in Sunni narrations. I didn't really find it in Shia narrations, but it's a lovely story nevertheless. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so in this story, it's about Al-Hajjaj. Ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Al-Hajjaj was an evil, evil man. If you look him up on Wikipedia, they'll tell you he's somebody that did so many good things, But if you have to do a bit of deep research to find out what sort of a killer this man was. He was the most loyal man to Banu Umayyah. Banu Umayyah used to love this guy. He, in every bad event, he's got a role in it. In Waqi'at al-Harra, he was there. This is where they went into the Medina, and they basically killed everyone in the Medina, and they did whatever they did. They used the Masjid Rasulullah as a stable for their battle horses. This is how bad it was. And more than this. And he was present there, and he would kill many people. So they say one day, he was traveling, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad ahsant. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So he was traveling and he stopped. He stopped and they set up the tent for him. And obviously this person was the viceroy of Iraq. They made him the governor of Hijaz. He had a very high position. So when he stopped, he has a huge entourage. They put a massive tent for him. They opened the tent so he could relax, and then they brought out the food. And the food that he has is royal food. So put all of this royal food, but he spies in the distance a man that's laying down half under a tree and half outside of the tree. So he says, call this man to come and join me eat. I just want to entertain myself with this random shepherd. Like it's like one of those guys that's got so much money, and you try to get them married and they don't want to get married. They say, I just want to find a real impoverished girl, and then I want to just shower her with my money and make her feel like, she'll worship me because, relax. In 2 months she'll get used to it and she'll be asking for Birkin before you know it. So he calls him and he tells him, come. And when they go to call him, he says, I can't come, I'm tending to the sheep. They said, this is Al-Hajjaj has called you, come. So he comes, Al-Hajjaj says, join me in this royal feast. He says, I can't, I'm already invited. I have an appointment. He says, and whoever has invited you, can he give you food like this food? He says, I'm fasting. And the one who has hosted me is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For he says to him, this is how arrogant Al-Hajjaj is. He says, break your fast, you can fast another day. So he says to him, can you guarantee me the next day that I will live so I can fast? Al-Hajjaj says, you are a fool. You have a chance to eat royal food and you're just going to walk away and leave it? Look at this idiot. And he says to him, oh Al-Hajjaj, is it you that makes the food tasty? He says, what do you mean? He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us healthy so we can appreciate the good food. For if we are sick, even the best food bought before me would taste like poison. And he gets up and he leaves. Al-Hajjaj is gobsmacked. Now this story, I don't know how true it is because Hajjaj didn't kill him at the end. And this is Hajjaj what he usually does. So the man got away. But the moral of the story is deep and it's important. That what is good isn't good because of what it looks like. What is good is because Allah has given us the benefits to enjoy the goodness of everything that is good. In this holy month, I ask of you all to forgive me for any shortcomings and forgive me for anything bad I've done to you, and anyone that has anything owing to them, except for maybe Hajj Hassan, come and ask me for it and inshallah I'll give it to you. But everyone else, inshallah, please forgive me, and I suggest that you all forgive each other, especially for the sisters upstairs. Please forgive one another. And if there's someone you don't talk to, call them up, make the move. I know it's hard, but once you make it, you feel excellent. Especially because you're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Somebody's done bad by you, whatever it may be, these things on the Day of Judgment don't matter. Today we can negotiate and talk. Tomorrow there's no negotiation. Day of Judgment, it's going to be 1 + 1 = 2. Someone's going to come and say, I didn't like the way you looked at me. This is what I want as recompense. You made me feel abased. This is what I want as recompense. And they'll be taking away your good deeds. نستجير بالله. ومن خفت موازينه. تخفيف الميزان in the Quran. Your mizan getting light, your scale of good deeds getting light is because of this. By the time it gets to the scale, so many have eaten from it. And the Prophet calls that the true bankrupt person. Al-Muflis. Al-Muflis yawm al-Qiyamah. For we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our holy Imam. We ask Allah to give us the tawfiq to benefit from the end of Shahr Sha'ban and be able to fast these days before the holy month of Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on our dead. And in the holy month we need to remember all the deceased that have passed away. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure us of our sicknesses, to fulfill all of our debts, to cure us of any addiction that we have and the addictions that our youth have. May Allah cure them from them and take these things away from their hearts. We ask Allah to protect them and we ask Allah to allow us to benefit, and we ask Allah to make our voices heard, because the brothers and sisters that are here, these bright believing faces, these are people that will turn up in Shahr Ramadan. But it's your job to tell the others that won't. The ones that you know that won't, drag them down, come down with me to come to this center or any center so they can read the Quran and do dua and they can get that benefit. And this benefit will also be of your benefit. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure all the sick. Hajj Hatim, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure him and get him out of hospital as soon as possible, inshaAllah. And everyone else that told us about their illnesses, the young 18-year-old boy that was diagnosed with leukemia, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure him, inshaAllah. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة وأهدى ثوابها إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات مع الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.